Hello and welcome to another funny epic story Friday. This is the second time I'm going to record this because my mic was muted the first time. Simple error. But today I'm going to talk about the campaign preceding Death Crew, the one with Miney, Manny, and Javon, the second longest campaign I ever ran. So the story I'm telling today is kind of a brief overview of the beginning of the campaign, just explaining how it happened and what happened. But basically, they had been kidnapped by a cult. It's something I use, kind of the driving force to explain how the party got together. Not starting in a tavern, not picking up a job, not organically meeting it. Well, it's organically, yeah, but not just meeting each other randomly. They start off being abducted by a cult and waking up in a prison. And I've used this before and after in multiple campaigns. But for this one, they started kidnapped by a cult of, I don't remember the name of it exactly, but it was something I reuse, a deity I reuse quite often, which is the Maw or the Leech, which is just some ancient deity that exists down at the bottom of the abyss that just devours life itself. When you send something down there, it's not coming back. And it exists at the bottom of the abyss, and it's constantly burrowing, making it deeper and deeper, and making new layers of the abyss. And that's just my homebrew for the abyss. But they start being captured by this cult. I believe it was just Manny and Miney for the first session, because Javon was currently deployed in the Navy. But they basically wake up captured. There are two other prisoners, just random NPCs, to give them like a little bit of info. Because basically, the way the cult works, I kind of made it. It's something I reused. But the cult of the Leech and Maw, the whole goal is not to sacrifice people, but to kill them in combat. The Leech or the Maw prefers hardy food that is powerful. So the way they do it is they don't. The way I did it to explain why they kept their gear and the cell that they were in was unlocked was they want you to escape so that they can kill you in battle, which was the basic premise of the intro to the campaign. They woke up, had all their gear, and the NPCs were like, yeah, no one comes to kill us, but no one comes back who leaves the cell. And they were like, hey, you guys look like capable fighters or adventurers, so we'll follow you, because they were running out of food and such. So the party, Manny and Miney, start to escape. They find their way through the barracks, through the mess hall of this underground subterranean, which is the same word as underground, this subterranean complex that they had found themselves in. And eventually they found the main sacrificial chamber, and I think they might have been level 3, so I think I threw like just regular cultists and then something I homebrewed called a Leech Hound, which is basically I just took a guard drake, which is in not the monster manual, but it's in one of the manuals. I took a guard drake and just made it a leech, like not homebrew because I'm just taking the stat block, but I changed it enough that it's different. So basically, they fight this, they win, and they escape. And they find themselves in a desert town. The notes to this campaign, long gone. I couldn't tell you the names of anything. I don't even know the names of their characters. It's been that long. Because this is pushing on maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago, somewhere around there. It is all up on YouTube, but it's not good quality. The audio is very poor. It's very, very quiet. You can't hear even if you're wearing headphones and you're cranking it max volume, you can't hear what they're talking about, and you can hear barely me. So it's not worth watching, which is why I'm retelling the story. But basically, they escape. They find themselves in a desert town, and they start to try and get rid of the cult and break free its grasp on the town. So they basically go to the guard, I believe, and the guard are like, oh, okay, you blah blah blah, you helped us root out some cultists, here's a bit of coin, here's a bit of information. And then they go. I think the first session ended there. Second session picks up, and they find themselves at a public execution for one of the cult members. And I had decided that basically the cult was powerful, but it wasn't organized. So they had like powerful members, sporadically dotted around. And the public execution, the guy in question Basically, he invoked a magic. I never really went into detail. I just kind of, I didn't come up with an explanation for this. But basically, he transformed into a leech abomination, which is basically just it was a demon reskinned to be this leech creature. And this is where Javon showed up. Him, his character, Manny and Miney, they all fought the leech abomination. They won. But if I remember correctly, Miney used a spell. It's something meteors, it's in the book, where he takes little meteors and fires them at the creature. But he was not an evocation wizard. He was a sorcerer. He was a homebrew sorcerer. Basically, he was his own sorcerer class. I don't remember which one he had picked. And his subclass, he had two. He barely had two. He had one that was his normal subclass, and then the other one was just wild magic. He basically just had the wild magic at all times, just because that's what he wanted. I felt that it wouldn't be that bad, and it wasn't. And Javon was using his homebrew, so I felt I'll let him have this. He can have wild magic. It never really came up. It never really happened. But which actually is something I should briefly touch on is I've changed wild magic in my campaigns. I've homebrewed it so every time you cast a spell, you roll a d20, obviously. But rather than it being a 1 or a 20, if you fail, as in you don't roll the number to invoke wild magic, it increases. So I don't remember if I don't recall, I haven't had a wild magic sorcerer in a while. I don't remember if it's a 1 or 20 that triggers it, but the way it works is you add it. So if it's a 1, now a 2. And then if it doesn't work again, a 3. So your chances go up and up until eventually you've got, say, 1 through 10 will trigger, and you would eventually roll that number all the way up to 20. So it'd be like, I'm rambling, which is the point of this, but it'd be 1 through 20, and it would increase every time you failed or you didn't get the wild magic. It would just add up until eventually you're going to get it. So, but he basically fired these meteors, killed the abomination, but he wasn't an evocation wizard, and some of the guards got caught in the crossfire and died. Manny's character was a cleric, and he spared the dying and saved both of them, but Miney, he kind of felt bad for killing the guards. But basically after this, the guards approached them and said, hey, you're capable fighters. We could use your help. We've tracked them down to a manor outside the city, and we need to get in there and eradicate them. And this is something I've done in previous stories. You'll know I like the demon cultists in a manor house, on the outskirts of a town, an abandoned one. I've used that recently. In Godkin, I used it to be the guiding force, because I like to use the cult aspect because it's a way to draw them together rather than something as simple as being in a tavern. Them being prisoners and having the need to escape is a common goal, and it helps the party be more cohesive. But to make the long story short, they get to the manor, fight their way through some enemies, take a bit of damage, get to the basement where they encounter, I believe at this point they had persuaded 2 guards to travel with them, and they were using them as kind of like bait. And of course, the 2 guards go first. The guy inside, I think he was a veteran, used his crossbow, took out both guards. There was a leech hound, big epic fight. They find an orb that is emanating magic. I believe Manny used dispel magic and made it inert, and then took the orb with him. But that's the beginning of the campaign. It's a little harder in my memory to pinpoint funny stories from this campaign. I have a few, but this campaign, it lasted the second longest behind Death Crew, but I do not recall many stories about it because it was longer. It was much longer. I'm struggling for words. It was farther back in my past. It's not something I remember immediately, but I'll try. But this one ran a little long, almost 10 minutes. But basically, I'm gonna continue the stories on Fridays and move my collection spotlight to Monday. And I got this desk. I'm gonna eventually start doing more in-depth book reviews. I'll read the book and then set it on the table with this camera right here, and I'll start breaking down books more in depth. But for now, I'm going to stick with 2 videos a week, Monday Collection Spotlight, Friday Funny Stories, mainly because I'm having a difficult time thinking of something to rant and ramble about. I'm just 3 videos a week is fine, but I'd rather have 2 and then be both good.